It's just after dusk during the rainy season in East Africa. The darkness is filled by 1,000 voices. It's the serenade of the frogs, a sort of male voice choir, each one advertising his presence to the silent females nearby. The rains will last only a few weeks, and each night during that period, the frogs will emerge to feed, call, mate, and leap in the dark. For 10 months of the year, this is the frog's habitat. The ponds are dry and the earth is hard and cracked. The frogs, so dependent on water, would last only a few minutes if exposed to these conditions, but they have learned to survive from one rainy season to the next. Where the frogs succeed, many other animals fail. The grey tree frog hides beneath the bark of a tree, while the tiny water lily frog sits glued to the shady underside of a leaf. Others, like this shovel-nosed frog, sit out the dry season underground. So too does the bullfrog, all 1 kilogram of it. It sealed itself inside a watertight film of dried mucus. The distant roll of thunder heralds the arrival of the rains. The frogs begin to emerge from their long, dry sleep. Their dehydrated bodies will almost double in weight over the next few hours as they soak up water. As the moisture seeps into the ground, the bullfrog breaks free from its protective covering. The dry skin is the first of the bullfrog's many meals during the wet season. At over 20 centimeters long and almost the same across, it's one of the largest frogs in the world and a voracious eater. It's not long before the pools are filled with water and the landscape is transformed. As night falls, the frog orchestra tunes up. Their instruments are these remarkable vocal sacs, which come in all shapes and sizes and produce all kinds of noises. The purpose of the frog's call is to attract a mate, and then the spawning begins. The African bullfrog is an exception in the frog world, in that the male is over twice the size of the female. It's usually the other way round. During mating, she almost disappears under his enormous bulk. Thousands of pinhead-sized eggs are laid, scattered over the bottom of the pond. The tadpoles hatch very quickly. They have to. The water will disappear almost as soon as it arrives. As the pools shrink, the race to grow quickens, and the tadpoles become cannibalistic and turn on each other. Those that survive develop legs, back ones first and then the front ones. Finally, the tail shrinks, and 3 weeks after spawning, the 2-centimetre-long, fully formed young can leave the water. Their one aim in life is to eat as much as they can and as quickly as they can. They're attracted by movement and will eat anything up to their own size. Beetles, caterpillars and other small insects are all crammed into a mouth that seems to stretch halfway round the frog's body. Cannibalism is very common, and the little bullfrogs are capable of swallowing siblings of almost the same size. There are some insects, though, that are just a little too big to eat, for the time being anyway. Within 3 years, they reach maturity and can eat large prey like this freshwater crab. With luck, the frog will live to the ripe old age of 20. Some frogs are far more particular when it comes to their choice of diet. The narrow-mouthed toad feeds almost exclusively on ants and termites. Termites are also a favourite food of many other frogs, like this red-legged cassina. As the frog blinks, its large eyes bulge down into the mouth cavity and help to force the insect down its throat. But frogs too have many enemies. This green snake is searching the undergrowth around the water's edge for newly emerged froglets. The green snake isn't poisonous, nor does it kill its prey by constriction. It simply swallows small animals alive. The snake will eat over a dozen little frogs in a single meal. But while the reptile is busy feeding, it too is being eyed up as a potential meal. The bullfrog, attracted to the snake's movements, pounces. The frog doesn't have teeth as we know them. Instead, it has 2 large bony projections from the lower jaw that fit into sockets in the upper jaw. These, coupled with its mouth's vice-like grip, provide the bullfrog with a formidable bite. Once its prey has been seized, there's little chance that it will escape. It takes only a few minutes for the frog to devour the 40 centimeters long snake. It's just one of the many meals it will have to find in order to build up enough fat to see it through the long, dry season. Not all the frogs of East Africa lay their eggs directly into water. The shovel-nosed frog spends most of its life underground. It doesn't even have to enter the ponds in order to breed. Everything is done in the privacy of its burrow. These 4-centimeter long frogs will live, mate and breed beneath a ½ meter or so of earth. The male remains tightly clasped around his mate's waist as she drags him through the burrow. Their scientific name of hemisus literally means half pig and refers to their conical pig-like faces. The eggs, about 200 of them, are laid in a solid jelly-like cake about 5 centimeters across. They're quite large for amphibian eggs, over 1/3 of a centimeter in diameter. The female sits on them until they hatch. There is some evidence that a secretion from her skin prevents the eggs from being destroyed by fungus. After 10 days, her vigil is almost at an end. The eggs have hatched. The centimeter-long tadpoles wriggle over and around her moist body. The pale area on the underside of each tadpole is a supply of yolk. They have enough food in reserve to keep them going for several days. The adult frog has dug a burrow down from the nest chamber to the water's edge nearby. The tadpoles instinctively slither downwards. They usually emerge under the cover of darkness. The advantage of this method of breeding is that it cuts out the water-bound eggs and early tadpole stages, which are always the most vulnerable, making easy pickings for aquatic predators. By releasing a relatively small number of offspring into the water as well-developed tadpoles, the shovel-nosed frog ensures that they have a fighting chance of survival. The bullfrog, on the other hand, simply released thousands of eggs into the pond, and although many would have been eaten, certainly some must survive out of so many. The two frogs have simply adopted different strategies when it comes to the all-important process of reproduction. The hemisus tadpoles will spend the next 3 weeks in the pond. Once the legs have developed and the tail has been absorbed, the tiny froglets will leave the water, never having to return. The same principle of laying fewer but well-protected eggs is used by the grey tree frog. But instead of laying its eggs underground, this frog lays them in the trees. The grey tree frog waits until the cover of darkness to build its nest. It's a joint effort between the male and female. The female, underneath and much the larger of the two, is bloated with eggs. The male sits on her back, not only to help in the construction of the nest, but also to fertilize the eggs as they're laid. It's also known as the foam nest tree frog because the eggs are protected in a frothy white mass. The foam is whipped up by the two frogs and seems to be a combination of mucus from the female's back and a secretion from her oviducts. The pair will spend most of the night nest building, pausing only occasionally for a rest. The small white eggs are laid scattered among the foamy mass, the outer surface of which will soon harden. Often several pairs of frogs join in to make one large communal nest. Even spare males will lend a hand, or more precisely, a foot. Each female has laid over 100 small white eggs. The following morning, a lone tree frog, exhausted after her night's work, adds some finishing touches to her nest. Five days later, the eggs have hatched. The tadpoles, each one barely 1 centimetre long, wriggle around inside the nest and break down the foam into a liquid. As the nest dissolves, the tadpoles drop into the water below and swim away. They enter the pool as well-formed swimmers, able to escape from many of the predators within it. But this remarkable system isn't foolproof. If the tadpoles hatch on a particularly hot or windy day, the liquid that protects them dries and leaves them hanging down like stalactites to their fate in the sun. If there are no overhanging trees available, the frogs will sometimes spawn on a convenient rock. But during the heat of the day, the temperature of the rock can rise dramatically. The nest on the left has already dried out, and only a few of the tadpoles from this one will make it to the water. The pair of tree frogs which built this nest left it too late in the season, and where once there was water, now there is only dried and cracked earth. The rainy season is now at an end, and the frogs' 2 months of feeding, courting and breeding is over. Now all they have to do is ensure that they can survive for the next 10 months until the next rains. The bullfrog shuffles backwards into the loose soil. Soon it will dry and bake hard in the sun. It's well stocked up with water and fat, built up from its impressive menu of scorpions, centipedes, crabs, snakes, small mammals, countless insects, and of course, other frogs. As it disappears, a butterfly sucks up its last drink from the moisture in the disturbed soil. The butterfly won't see the next rainy season. "30 centimeters below the surface, it crouches, surrounded in its watertight skin, ready to sit it out. Its heartbeat will slow down to a level which will just keep its body ticking over. All around, the rest of the frogs are following the bullfrog's example. The narrow-mouthed toad disappears rapidly into the ground with the aid of little horny pads on its hind feet. The shovel-nosed frog, aptly named, goes in head first, using its snout like a bulldozer and back legs to drive it forward. It's only rarely seen above the ground, even in the wet season. Beneath the surface lies a maze of tunnels and chambers. The little pixie is a close relative of the bullfrog. At 5 centimeters, it's only a fraction of the size. It takes its last look at the African countryside before disappearing for the next 10 months. The frogs that emerged at the onset of the rains to leap in the dark are now buried deep underground, asleep in the dark.
Salamanders, tailed amphibians whose prehistoric ancestors crawled out of primeval lakes and swamps 100 million years before the dinosaurs arrived. According to many myths and legends, salamanders have the most remarkable powers. But the facts about them are even stranger than the fantasies. It was once believed that salamanders lived in fire and could, when they wished, extinguish it. That is hardly true. But salamanders have lived through millions of years of geological change, and they still flourish even today. Salamanders have a moist skin that is permeable to air and water, and that means they can only live in moist places. You might also think that it makes them very vulnerable to predators. A wolf prowling in a European forest is looking for a meal. But this fire salamander has an ancient and effective form of defense. The vivid black and yellow coloration is a warning of poison that is widely understood in the animal kingdom. The salamander can produce a bitter toxin from glands on its back. If you interfere with it, there can be trouble. Muscles around each gland contract and squirt poison directly into an attacker's face. And the fire salamander escapes with its life. When the dinosaurs died out, little mammals like today's shrews took over the forest. Shrews are small but ferocious predators, and they need great quantities of insects and other small creatures to sustain themselves. A soft-bodied amphibian could easily be on the menu. But the marble salamander's vivid coloration again warns of danger. The hungry shrew recklessly takes no notice. Poisonous slime is released from glands above the tail, which the salamander lashes vigorously, so attracting the shrew's attention to its least vulnerable and most distasteful part. The shrew persists, but eventually the taste of the salamander is altogether too nasty. Garter snakes hunt through the drier parts of North American forests, but salamanders here have a special way of foiling them. This salamander has no lungs. It breathes through its skin, so it can't suffocate. Its glands produce a slime which sticks around the snake's jaws. This slows down the attack until the snake, which does have a lung, simply runs out of breath and is forced to let go. With leaves and soil stuck around its head, the snake can't work its jaws properly, and it'll be several days before it can go hunting again. The Appalachian Mountains of North America. Salamander heaven. Billions of them, belonging to over 20 different species, live here. Most ancient of them all is a giant with an ancestry that stretches back 200 million years. It lives in the streams. It's as long as a man's arm, and it lurks beautifully camouflaged among the rocks of the riverbeds. It's the hellbender. Flaps of skin increase its surface area and so enable it to absorb all the oxygen it needs directly from the water. Hellbenders, the original salamanders, still live permanently in water. But 100 million years ago, many of their relations moved up onto land. Some Appalachian salamanders still have to return to water to breed, but others have become totally terrestrial. Redback salamanders are more abundant than any other backboned animal in North America. There are 2.5 million of them in every square kilometre of Appalachian forest. Their eyesight is excellent, and they notice the slightest movement. But they've got to get close to their prey if they're going to catch it. A seal salamander is also out hunting. With excellent night vision, it too must wait for its prey to come within range. The redback suddenly becomes aware of danger, but the seal salamander keeps still and isn't noticed. And then something extraordinary happens. The redback amputates the end of its tail. It's a clean break. The vertebrae have separated neatly, and automatic muscle contractions wave the discarded end, diverting the seal salamander's attention. The seal salamander gets a snack and the redback escapes with its life. The wound closes up straight away, there's no loss of blood, and the lost tip will soon grow back. So, in the end, everybody wins something. Costa Rica, a land of volcanoes. Mountains covered in thick forests and enveloped in almost permanent fog, ideal conditions for salamanders. They spread down here from the Appalachians and quickly adapted to local environments. Today, there are 150 species occupying different niches from the coast up to the mountaintops. 200 feet up in the canopy, bromeliads provide one species with a home. The palm salamander has to take great care not to fall out of its plant when hunting, but its semi-webbed feet give it a good grip, and it's got a particularly long tongue. There are so many different kinds of salamanders in the forests of Central America that every year another 20 or so new species are discovered. One specialist lives in the soil. It's called Oedipina, and it has adapted so well to its underground life that it actually looks like a worm. It's as long as your forearm and has become so worm-like that its tiny legs are no longer necessary to propel it. Indeed, they've almost disappeared altogether. This particular Oedipina would be even longer had it not lost a piece of its tail. One of the strangest looking of all salamanders only emerges from the litter of the forest floor at night. It's the striated salamander. A heliconia with its sturdy stem and large leaves makes a good platform from which to catch flying insects. And up here, it's safer from snakes and other hunters of the forest floor. Its fully webbed feet act as suction cups and give it a secure hold. In these tropical forests, the seasons are not well marked, and all these various habitats are permanently moist. Some species that spend most of their time on land nevertheless need water in which to breed. In most North American swamp forests, rains can be relied upon every autumn. By early spring, these forests may be flooded. For salamanders, what could be better? This female marble salamander chose her spot carefully. She laid 150 eggs at high water mark and has guarded them all winter. She is adapted for life on land and breathes through lungs. So now she must abandon her eggs or she will drown. Triggered by the rising water, the eggs start to hatch and tadpoles with gills emerge. They feed on water fleas, but their first efforts are rather uncoordinated. They're totally defenseless, and there are plenty around who regard them as a good meal. Water beetles feast on them. This tadpole has perished, but out of its 149 brothers and sisters, there's a good chance that one or two will survive. For 4 months, marble tadpoles will feed and grow on the flooded forest floor. At first, they have gills with which to absorb oxygen from the water. Then, an extraordinary change takes place. As their lungs develop, they lose their gills and strengthen their legs and become very different-looking creatures. They still swim like fish, which is just as well. The water moccasin is a keen and swift hunter. Even a water spider could kill one. Overcrowding in the lakes of a drying land was probably the impetus that drove salamanders out of water 65 million years ago. And the water-living larvae of the marble salamander still repeat that evolutionary move every year. On a dark, wet night in April, they all emerge at once. 5,000 cautiously sniff the air and run for cover in the wet leaves. For the next 2 years, they'll wander over the forest floor and perhaps find new ponds for themselves. They grow bigger and heavier over the summer, and their warning colors develop. Fully grown and with poison in their skin to protect them, they're now relatively safe. A summer night in the Appalachians, and billions of redback salamanders are beginning new lives. They have completely broken the link with water and are totally terrestrial. In the cool dampness under every log and rock, there's a nursery. The female redback salamander protects her small brood. She too secretes a cocktail of antibiotics and fungicides to keep her eggs clean and healthy through their development. The half-formed embryos, curled around their yolk sacs, rotate very slowly within their transparent eggs. Blood vessels form and carry food from the yolk to the growing tissues. Limb buds appear. And the eyes, vital for a life at night, grow large. The heart beats rhythmically. And the stomach wall starts to thicken around the yolk sac. Chromatophores, the cells that will give color to the skin, begin to develop. After 6 weeks, the walls of the eggs at last begin to thin. These baby redback salamanders represent a crucial stage in evolutionary history. They have entirely missed out the aquatic tadpole stage. 65 million years ago, it may well have been creatures like these that were the first backboned animals to reproduce on land. Even when they've emerged from their eggs, their stomachs are still full of yolk and they continue to grow. They will all live together as a family group for a year or so until they're large enough to defend themselves. In the meantime, their mother will protect them from harm. Not all salamanders here are so independent of water. One, though it prefers land when adult, never strays far from the edge of streams, for water will be vital for her tadpoles. She's a dusky salamander, and she wears her eggs proudly on her head. There are about 20 of them, glued together in a bunch. She will guard them for weeks, and throughout that time she won't feed, unable to discard her precious hat for even a moment. A seal salamander has the dusky's fresh eggs in his sights. The seal salamander is bigger and heavier, but the dusky's maternal instincts are strong and she fights valiantly. She puts her own life at risk to protect her remaining eggs. The seal salamander is forced to retreat with only half the prize. Many eggs have been lost, but the mother dusky has done well to save a few from destruction. It's now autumn in the Appalachians, and down in the leaf litter, the red-legged salamanders are starting their courtship. Night falls. For a salamander breeding on land, internal fertilization is essential. With his huge eyes and acute sense of smell, the male red-legged salamander soon fixes on the object of his affections. She is not to be won easily. He will have to display all his best features. His lips anoint sexual stimulants on her skin, and so start the courtship. Stimulated by his ointments and his waving red legs, she straddles his tail and joins in the dance. He leads her around the floor for an hour or so. At the slightest hesitation, he will gently massage her chin with his tail until he has her full attention again. He stops on a patch of clean rock and deposits a spermatophore, a pillar of jelly topped with a packet of sperm. He walks forward and stops again. She is now in exactly the right position to suck up the sperm into her body. It's all over. The pillar has lost its top, showing that the seduction was successful. But the male has invested a lot of time and effort in the proceedings, and he checks on its success. In South Carolina, the marble salamanders are waiting for their mating dance to begin. It's not going to be a private affair. Thousands are expected to attend. The first big storm fixes the date. A huge amount of rain falls, soaking the forest floor and telling the marble salamanders that tonight is the night. Salamanders travel for as much as a kilometre from all directions to join in the party. Landmarks, smells, and their internal compass help them to return to the place where they were hatched. The forest floor comes alive as 10,000 salamanders join in the dance. Every female secretes a chemical signal from her skin that lets the males know that they found a female of the right species who's ready to mate. And everyone joins in. A male's reaction to these encounters is to put down a spermatophore. He can only hope that one of the females will come along and pick it up. There are many spermatophores to choose from, so to increase his own chances, every male deposits 20 or so. On another dark and stormy night, in a few years' time, the offspring spawned during this dance will return to dance themselves, just as their ancestors had been doing for the last 65 million years.